Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring a mystery so deeply personal, it completely flips the entire missing person narrative upside down. It's the unbelievable true story of a guy who solved a decades-old cold case where the missing person was, well, actually him.
So, imagine looking at a missing child poster and suddenly realizing the kid staring back is you. I mean, it sounds exactly like the plot of a psychological thriller, right? Picture this. You're scanning a wall of faded missing child posters, looking at the faces of people who just vanished without a trace, and suddenly, through the faded ink and the passage of time, you recognize a pair of eyes staring right back at you. Your own eyes. It's the absolute reality-shattering shock of realizing that the life you're living might just be a complete illusion, and that somewhere out there, an entirely different family has been mourning your absence, because incredibly, that is exactly what happened here.
Okay, let's dive into this. For over 3 decades, Steve Carter lived a totally normal, ordinary life. He knew a couple of basic facts. He knew he had been adopted, and he knew he was born in Hawaii. But honestly, that was essentially where the certainty ended. His true family history? A complete blank. His real birth name? Absolutely no idea. Look, when Steve checked his old adoption papers, the most important details were literally blurred out. The map of his life just connected a birthplace in Hawaii to an upbringing thousands of miles away, with this massive dark void of information in between. But for 30 years, that blurred history was really just a quiet background detail in an otherwise normal life.
But then, one story changed the whole shebang. Sometimes it just takes one tiny external spark to ignite a wildfire of curiosity about your own life. For Steve, that spark was television news footage. He happened to watch the incredible story of a woman named Carlina White. Her story was making national headlines because she made this shocking discovery about her own true identity and realized she'd been raised by someone who had taken her as an infant. Watching that narrative unfold on the news struck a really deep chord with Steve. Seeing someone else bravely unravel the tightly wound threads of their mysterious past, it totally inspired him. He suddenly felt this overwhelming need to look closer at his own blurred adoption papers and finally ask the questions he'd been putting off for decades.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because Steve didn't just sit around wondering. He took immediate action. The catalyst was seeing that news story, and it pushed him straight to his computer. He deliberately searched the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's database. As his fingers typed and he filtered through all those digital archives of lost children, he stumbled upon an image that stopped him dead in his tracks. It was an age-progressed image of a missing infant. And the final, undeniable action when you see a ghost from the past that shares your face, he picked up the phone and immediately contacted investigators.
Could this missing child actually be him? The tension in that moment must have been just suffocating. Imagine sitting there in the dim glow of your computer monitor. You're looking at a digitally age-progressed image of a baby who disappeared decades ago, updated to show what that child might look like today as an adult. And as you lean in, the face on the screen seamlessly mirrors the reflection of your own shocked expression bouncing off the monitor. The jawline, the eyes, the facial structure. It wasn't just a passing resemblance, it was an exact match. It was quite literally a mirror looking into a past he never even knew he had.
Now, obviously, a visual resemblance isn't enough to just rewrite a person's entire legal and biological history, right? Science had to step in. Steve contacting the investigators led to the collection of DNA samples. Swabs were taken, sent off to the labs, and scientists began the rigorous process of comparing his genetic code to a family that had been waiting for a ghost to return. And then, the truth arrived. The results confirmed the absolutely impossible. The DNA match was a lock. His name wasn't originally Steve Carter. Actually, scratch that. His whole identity was rewritten in one single reality-shifting moment when the scientific climax of this investigation revealed his true birth name: Marks Panama Moriarty Barnes. A simple laboratory report erased the blurred lines of his adoption papers and handed him back his stolen identity. To really wrap our heads around the gravity of this DNA match, we've got to rewind all the way back to 1977. That was the year a baby was reported missing in Hawaii. Vintage newspaper headlines from the era flashed the news everywhere. And from that exact moment, a father's agonizing 35-year journey began. For more than 3 decades, his dad never stopped searching. Imagine being a father, year after year, flipping through old photo albums, tirelessly making phone calls, placing physical missing person flyers on poles, just watching calendar pages flip into whole new decades, all of it leading to the present day, where, against all odds, that identity was finally restored.
35. I really want to strongly emphasize this number. because it carries the heavy emotional weight of this entire explainer. 35 years. Just think about how much happens in 35 years. Lifetimes are built, technologies evolve, the world completely changes shape. And for every single day of those 35 years, a father lived with an open wound. He held on to hope, and he never stopped the search for his missing child. It is such a massive testament to the endurance of a family's love.
So the real question is, why did this search take 35 years, and why did the case go so cold for so long? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast in investigation eras and just how trapped investigators were by analog limitations back in the 1970s. When Marks first went missing, their databases were literal physical filing cabinets. To put that into perspective, trying to cross-reference a missing child across state lines meant manually mailing physical photos and just hoping a clerk hundreds of miles away happened to recognize the face. Their facial recognition network? Pinning a paper flyer to a bulletin board and hoping for the best. Contrast that with the modern era. Those old filing cabinets transitioned into interconnected national digital databases. Paper flyers were replaced by digital age progression software and, crucially, DNA sequencing. The limitations that allowed a kidnapped child to disappear into the system in the 70s were the exact same limitations that modern technology finally shattered.
To reiterate, it was this specific trifecta of modern science that succeeded where decades of traditional on-the-ground searching could not. First, the National Missing Persons databases provided the centralized, accessible digital infrastructure. Anyone, anywhere could search it. Second, digital age progression software allowed investigators to bridge the visual gap of time, projecting a baby's face into adulthood with startling accuracy. And finally, advanced DNA sequencing matches provided the undeniable biological proof. We're talking about literal strands of DNA connecting two family members across time and space, completely solving a mystery that paper flyers simply never could. And the result of all that technology, all that searching, and all that heartbreak? After decades of uncertainty, Steve finally learned who he truly was. After 35 years, he finally came home. The culmination of this entire journey wasn't just a data point in a police file, it was a real, deeply emotional human moment. It was Steve, bathed in warm lighting, finally able to physically embrace the family members who had loved him and looked for him since 1977. This wasn't just a closed case for the police, it was a profound restoration of a family that was fractured decades ago. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this powerful thought. Sometimes, the greatest mystery isn't finding someone else. It's discovering yourself. Every single missing persons case represents a family out there waiting in absolute agony for answers. But thanks to the incredible advances in DNA and investigative technology we've walked through today, stories that were once thought absolutely impossible to solve are finally reaching their endings. And it begs a deeper, more provocative question for all of us. As digital databases and DNA technology continue to advance, how many other impossible mysteries are sitting in cold case files right now, just waiting for a single computer search to rewrite history?